I do want to bring in Justice Earls. Justice Earls, thank you so much for your time. We've been talking a little bit about who you are, not necessarily as a person, because I don't know in that respect, but obviously you went to Yale, a prestigious university, and your resume speaks for itself. You're on a re-election bid, I would say, it's an 8-year term, if I understand it correctly. So I wanted to ask you, starting off, what things should North Carolina voters know about you ahead of the 2026 midterms? And just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, yes, hello, and thank you so much for this opportunity. I think it's most important that people know my record both on the bench, but also before I was elected in 2018. So I, for 30 years, was a civil rights attorney. Most of that time in North Carolina, I represented clients across the state in civil rights cases. So that means when people felt they were being discriminated against on their jobs, in voting rights cases, school desegregation cases. I also handled criminal defense and some family law. So I really had a general practice, starting out the first 10 years in Charlotte with the Ferguson Stein law firm. I think that's the most important thing for people to know is that before running for the court and before serving on the state Supreme Court, I had litigated cases representing ordinary folks across the state in a wide variety of issues.
It's great to know, and obviously great to have some understanding about where you've been and really what you'd like to work on. So I guess that's my next thing is you've been very vocal about making things more equitable, not necessarily just in North Carolina as a whole, but specifically on the Supreme Court, in the judicial system, in some respects. And I did want to ask you a little bit about if you're going to be taking that not necessarily as a mantle, but something that I think a lot of folks are kind of looking out for. They want access to that. I've always said it. If you can see it, you can be it. And I think you are actually doing that. So, what does that look like for you? Is that going to be something that you are trying to change in the future?
Well, what I can say is that I ran for the court initially in 2018, and I'm running for re-election now because I am committed to the concept and the principle of equal justice under the law. And that sounds very vague and abstract, but I've worked really hard to make it real and concrete. So that means, whether the party appealing their case in front of us is the state of North Carolina, whether it's an individual, whether it's a business, along all sorts of lines, it's important to me that I always approach every case understanding that we need to guarantee equal justice for everyone.
I was reading a little bit about your background. Kind of grew up in Seattle, which I think is such an eclectic background. But then, in the heartland of America, where you were in Missouri, grew up there. What things did you learn from and take from your childhood, or maybe even early adulthood, that now you're bringing into your office with you, litigating cases, those type of things?
Sure. Well, I am a mom and a grandma now, and my older son went to elementary and middle school in Charlotte, and so certainly those experiences have given me a good sense, as well as the work I did representing families and communities, given me a good sense of what ordinary folks face in this state. In terms of my own upbringing, I always say, and it's very true, that the reason why I wanted to be a lawyer and the reason why equal justice is so important to me is growing up in a mixed race family. My mother and father, my mother's white, my father's black. When they met, it was illegal for them to be married. And I saw the courage with which they faced those barriers. And I wanted to be a part of opening up opportunity for everyone. So that's in essence how my background has influenced how I approach the court. But I would also say that what I think a lot of people don't realize is that our court, even if you don't have a case in front of us, our court makes decisions that impact ordinary folks' lives all the time. So whether it's how much money will be spent on public education, what kind of opportunities your children might have in public schools, whether it's how much you pay for electricity, whether it's what you have to pay if you are uninsured and need treatment at an emergency room. There's just a wide range of types of cases that our court is making decisions that then impact your life.
I did ask Chair Anderson Clayton, the leader of the North Carolina Democrats, about parity on the Supreme Court or in the judicial system, and we kind of touched on it as well, especially with Allison Riggs now getting back into things and back into the office again. It's an elected, obviously, position, right? So you can't force people to be put in a position that they don't want to be. But I guess my question is, how important is it to have that balance of power back? Because even Chair Clayton was talking a little bit about how even Republicans and Democrats are coming now more towards the center of things and saying that they want to be able to have discussions with the other side of the aisle, meaningful discussions that actually create change. So it seems like it's very important to have parity, especially the judicial side of things. What's your take on that?
Well, I've always said that it's important to have a court. So we are 7 members on this court. We are charged with deliberating, which should mean that we listen to each other, hear each other's perspectives, understand each other's points of view, and that we represent the variety and diversity of lived experiences of people across the state. So to me, that means that we need diversity along a number of different lines. So in other words, along racial lines, gender, economic background, and professional background. I think it's important that we have people on our court who have worked in various areas of the law, because as a justice on the Supreme Court, we're generalists. And so we each come to the court with a background of what we did as lawyers. And it's really valuable, I think, to have lawyers from a variety of different types of background. But I would also say that really important to our democracy in this state is to have effective checks and balances. We have 3 branches of government at our state level, and they should be balanced. And when we have a court that is ready to rubber stamp whatever the legislature does, I don't think that's healthy. I don't think that's what the founders and the folks who structured our state constitution intended. That's very different from what my colleagues believe. And so you see that reflected in our written opinions. But I say that to say that one opponent has, one Republican has already announced that she's running for my seat, Sarah Stevens. She's a member of the legislature, has been in the legislature for 17 years. And we already have on our court Justice Tamara Beringer, who was also in the state legislature. We have the Senate Majority Leader Phil Berger's son on our court. And I think that it's important that we have a court that is willing to fairly and impartially examine what the legislature does and make sure that it's consistent with the state constitution, because otherwise we're just giving up our role and our responsibility under that constitution to protect people's rights and to be a check and balance on the other 2 branches of government. So that's another way in which I know you were sort of asking about balance in terms of partisanship, but I also think balance in terms of the perspective that someone brings to the court matters a lot.
No, I think that answer hit the mark. So that was great. My last thing, and I usually try and ask this because I obviously had some very pointed questions. Anything that I'm missing that you wanted to elaborate on, tell our viewers, and I'm sure we'll probably ask you, Justice Earls, to come back on before 2026 midterms at some point. So hopefully you will have some time to do so. But yeah, any last comments, any last remarks that I missed that you wanted to just talk about?
Sure. Well, I just want to emphasize to all of your viewers and listeners how valuable it is that they are being informed, and that it's so important that people recognize their power as voters. And so to know what's at stake, to know what choices they have when they go to vote, to know why the Supreme Court matters so much. I mean, you just got to ask the question when you look at what happened in Justice Riggs' case, why was the Republican Party willing to spend millions of dollars trying to litigate over whether she should take the seat that she received the most votes for? And so clearly our state courts matter now more than ever before. And I just really applaud folks who are willing to stay engaged, understand the issues, and be informed when they make their decisions at the ballot box.
Absolutely. It is such a privilege to be able to be in this nation and to cast a vote. I do not take that lightly. So I appreciate that you also hold those same values. So yes, I'm sure we'll contact you again and see you very soon. I know you've had a busy night, so I certainly appreciate your time. Stay safe and have a great weekend so much. Thank you. Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you.